So there's a lot of great stuff streaming. You already know that, but did you know that there's one particular person that you should be interested in? A couple of things that are streaming this week. DC's Peacemaker on HBO Max and Brazen on Netflix, and she's in them both. It's Alison Araya. Alison, how you doing?
Oh, I'm so well. Thank you so much for having me.
So exciting week for you then, huh?
Yeah, it's a big week. It just so happens that both these shows are coming out the same day, which is super fun.
So let's start with Peacemaker. I mean, you're certainly no
hmm
stranger to DC TV. You've spent some time on Arrow. You were in Supergirl for a little bit as well. How
hmm
different was your experience on Peacemaker than from the Arrowverse?
I think it's a different experience because of the Suicide Squad and the feature film version coming out first, and just like a bigger world. Getting to work with James Gunn was incredible, and obviously John Cena, and it was just a completely different experience. Like, it was a big opportunity, and I was really excited to be on board.
Did it just feel bigger? Did it have that like movie aspect to it when you guys were on set?
For me, it did definitely. Obviously not the same budgets as a feature film, but I think also starting the show, it being a new show, and those first couple of episodes, finding the tone, finding the humor, finding the characters. Yeah, that part was really unique.
Speaking of finding the characters, going into this 3 episode premiere, we don't know a ton about Amber and her husband Lenny. So how much can you actually tease for us about who they are?
Well, I think this is going to be a really interesting marriage on screen. uh, they're not the happiest couple, but they certainly are dynamic, and I think that's all I can say.
Dynamic, and given how this show is, that should be very interesting going into this thing. So you talked about James Gunn. We know how big of a fan of music he is. He's a music nut. So how much does music actually play a role in this series, and how fun was that?
Music is another layer of character, I think, in this series. And one of the things that thrilled me about this project was, along with the scripts, there was a playlist. So it really helped get into the tone, get into the mind of this world. And it introduced me to some new music as well, which I loved.
That's always cool. Do you guys actually hearing the music while you were on set, while you were doing scenes? Because I know a lot of times you guys don't get to hear the soundtrack while you're shooting, right?
Yeah, we did for one particular scene. There was live music, so that was really cool to have that playback.
Very nice, very nice. So now the running joke, speaking of the Suicide Squad, the running joke with John Cena was that he spent the majority of the time either in his Peacemaker suit or in his underwear. Was that true of this show as well? And what was it like working with John?
Well, I think you're going to have to wait and see and watch and see just how much time he spends in his tidy whities, if indeed he does. And working with John was incredible, like incredible. He's hilarious and so professional. I had a blast. I had a really memorable time working on the show.
Excellent, excellent. So it's easy to kind of look at this series and you see the humor, you see the intense action and stuff like that. But much like the Suicide Squad, do you feel like this movie brings some interesting social commentary to the table as well?
100%. I think, within the superhero world, there's so much room for social commentary. And I think Peacemaker definitely has elements of that, peppered throughout the entire series. And I think audiences are going to really dig that.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the other project that you've got going on this week, and that is Brazen on Netflix, which is actually an adaptation, for anybody that doesn't know, of the Nora Roberts book, Brazen Virtue. And if you don't know Nora Roberts, you're not paying attention because she's got like 1,000 books. So what's
Yeah.
the most interesting aspect of this story for you?
Well, I mean, to be honest, working with Alyssa Milano was a real treat. I remember growing up and watching her, um, and always like, she was one of my idols. Like, she was one of the reasons why I was so enamored with acting when I was a kid. So to get a chance to work with her was really sweet. And working with Monica Mitchell, she's a brilliant director. The cast was amazing, and to bring this story to life was great.
So were you introduced to, for Alyssa Milano, were you a Who's the Boss fan, or were you a Charmed fan? Because it's usually one or the other. Or are you going to surprise me with something that I'm not thinking about?
No, no, I was a big Who's the Boss fan,
There you
100%.
go. Yeah. Excellent. I love that. I love that. So, talking about your character a little bit, it seems like Captain Rivera doesn't have an easy job. You know, since we seen the trailer that she's dealing with a serial killer now in this particular instance, just how difficult is this case going to get?
It's a juicy one, definitely. It's intriguing. The second I read the script, I thought, wow, this is a great story. I think for Captain Rivera, this being in collaboration with this author and taking this case and working together, huge new opportunity. And it's not the way usually run cases, but the outcome is what we want.
Oh, I can only imagine. Now, you talked about Alyssa Milano and her character, Grace McCabe. We saw in the trailer that she's kind of want to get involved with the investigation, and it always makes me wonder in these situations. Is Captain Rivera just kind of open to her being a part of this, or is she like, get out of my way, let us do our job, and, you're just going to be in the way here, sort of thing?
Well, I think, very much following protocol, this isn't the norm. And so having that assistance, that outside assistance come in definitely shakes things up. But I think, the virtue of having her part of it and her expertise as an author and being able to collaborate really helps the case overall. So I think that's where, that collaboration that is non-traditional can help. And yeah, the outcome is the one that we want.
How do you feel like this project balances that too, though? Because obviously, if you or I rolled up into a police station and said, "Hey, I want to help," they'd probably say, "Get out of here." So and you see this a lot too, and sometimes it's done well, and sometimes it's not done as well. How do you feel like this show helps? Obviously, this is fiction, but how do you feel like it brings a little bit of a true aspect to this as well?
That's really interesting. I think there's a community out there of online sleuthers that do have who have made serious contributions to cases. And so I think there are instances where outside perspective or outside help can actually help an investigation. And I mean, that's not always the case, obviously, but I do think that there are some instances where it can help. In this particular show, it really does highlight an instance where it does definitely help.
I mean, just look at Unsolved Mysteries, which is also streaming on Netflix right now. You can take that as an example of that from over the years, and even now too, as a matter of fact. So I guess that could be the case as well.
For sure.
So I was thinking about this as I was getting ready to talk to you and looking at the projects that you're doing, and I'm thinking there's a little bit of an overlap here, I think. So other than just being a fan of yours, which is a natural connection, why do you think fans of Peacemaker would also enjoy Brazen and vice versa?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, as a character actor, I have had the incredible privilege of jumping from different genres and working in an array of different projects. So I think anyone interested in following my work, is always going to get like a big mishmash of some comedy, some drama, some superhero stuff. And, I'm always having a good time, everything I do.
So here's the deal. You've done a lot of Christmas movies, and we just came off of the Christmas season as well. So it's just like when December rolls around, you're like, all right, here we go. We're going to be seeing a lot of Alison on this thing. And are those actually fun to do? Because I've always wondered, are those really fun to do, those kinds of projects?
I absolutely adore the Christmas movies. It's always an incredible crew of people, and there's always little teams. And so whenever I get a chance to work with a particular team, and bounce around different shows, it's always such a treat. And I'm a sucker for Christmas. I absolutely love Christmas. And so anytime I'm on a Christmas show, it's if you look close enough, you probably see me distracted for a moment because I'm so taken by the Christmas lights and the fake snow and the whole shebang.
That's why I couldn't do it. I couldn't concentrate. I'd be too busy looking at all the decorations and playing in the snow and stuff. I'd be all over the place. I'd be like a squirrel on the set of those things. So, like you said, you've done so many really cool things. You've been in part of Riverdale. You've been on Nancy Drew and some other things as well. Is there anything or any particular character, any project you'd really like to go back and revisit at some point?
And revisit. I mean, I had so much fun with Julie and the Phantoms, and that was definitely a show that I hoped, we'd have more opportunities to tell more of that story. So that's a character that's always going to stay near and dear to my heart. Given a chance to step into Amber again, I would do it in a heartbeat.
I think a lot of fans are with you on that too. So we'll have to keep our fingers crossed for, hey, you never know, right? You just
Exactly.
never know. So, Alison, before I let you go, I'm sure
Mhm.
it's a lot of fun working on shows and movies like Peacemaker. When the cameras aren't rolling as well, I know when that's when a lot of the fun happens. So did you have any fun behind the scenes stories that you could share with us, or any pranksters on set, or were you guys not able to really do a whole lot of that stuff?
No, I mean, we were finding our feet. We shot the first couple of episodes, and so everyone's working it out. But I can tell you that it was a fun, really entertaining set to be on. I think audiences are going to that joy is going to translate 100% on screen, and I think fans are going to be in for a real big treat with this show.
I think I agree with you on that. So, really quickly, is there anything else that you've got coming up that's really cool that you're really, really excited to tease or maybe talk about a little bit?
Nothing that I can talk about just yet, but there's lots of really fun, great stuff coming down the pipeline. So,
Isn't that always
yeah.
the way? And
I
that always the way? I was
know.
like, yeah, man, I got this really cool thing. I can't say anything about it. And that, and I'm sure that drives you nuts too, because you probably want to burst and talk all about it.
Honestly, it does, or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to tell someone.
See,
But
that's why I
we
couldn't do
signed
it.
those NDAs.
That's why I couldn't do what you do, because I'm like the spoiler king, and that's why I'm like, hey, if you guys are able to do that, good for you, because I'd be spilling everything and I'd be in big trouble.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you can see her in is the first 3 episodes of Peacemaker are actually now streaming on HBO
Mhm.
Max, so you could dive right into that big time. Also, Brazen streaming on Netflix as well, which looks like a really cool. I'm already trying to figure out the mystery just based on the trailer alone, and I can't wait to dive into that as well. It's Alison Araya. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk
Thank
to me today. I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.